The grand auditorium of the NYU Stern School of Business was packed to capacity. The air was thick with anticipation as students, faculty, and distinguished guests eagerly waited for the keynote speaker of the evening. The event, Stern's freshman welcoming ceremony, was always a significant occasion, marking the beginning of a new academic journey for incoming students. But this time it had garnered unprecedented attention from both the media and the public. The reason? Barron Trump. The 19-year-old son of the sitting U.S. President Donald Trump was set to deliver a speech that had already been hyped as one of the most anticipated public addresses of the year. As a senior at Stern, Barron had largely stayed away from the political spotlight, instead focusing on his academic career in business and finance. His father's presidency had once again polarized the nation, but Barron had carved out his own unique identity, one that had remained a mystery to many. Speculations were rampant. Would he echo the brash and unapologetic style of his father? Or would he distance himself from the legacy of the Trump name and carve his own ideological path? What would he say to a crowd of aspiring business leaders who looked up to NYU Stern as a gateway to the American dream? As the university's dean, Dr. Michael Sanders, stepped onto the podium, the crowd fell silent. He adjusted the microphone and smiled. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have the honor of hearing from one of our brightest minds at NYU Stern. A young man who, despite growing up in the spotlight, has chosen to forge his own journey in the world of business and finance. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker for the evening, Barron Trump. The applause was thunderous. Some clapped enthusiastically while others remained cautiously observant. Everyone wanted to hear what he had to say. Barron Trump strode onto the stage, his tall frame commanding attention. Dressed in a navy blue suit, his expression was calm but determined. He stepped up to the podium, took a deep breath, and for a moment he simply looked at the audience. Then he began. Good evening, everyone. His voice was deeper than many expected, steady and articulate. Let me start by saying, if someone had told me 4 years ago that I'd be standing here today delivering this speech, I wouldn't have believed them. Not because I didn't dream big, but because I had no idea how much the school, this journey, and my failures would shape me. The word failures caught everyone's attention. A Trump talking about failures? That was unexpected. The audience leaned in. Barron continued. Most of you know me as the president's son. But what many don't know is that when I first came to Stern, I had no idea who I really was. I had spent most of my life under the world's microscope, where every mistake, every success, every moment was judged before I could even process it myself. He paused, letting the weight of those words settle over the audience. The room was silent. But here's what Stern taught me. Who you are is not your name. It's not your legacy. It's not even your achievements. It's the way you handle your failures. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The atmosphere had shifted. People weren't just listening, they were absorbing his words. I'll be honest with you. My first year here, I was lost. I thought I had all the answers, just like a lot of freshmen do. I had my last name, I had resources, and I assumed that was enough. But then reality hit me. I failed my first major finance exam. I was stunned. I had never failed anything in my life. But that moment was a wake-up call. For the first time, I realized that if I wanted to be something more than just Barron Trump, the president's son, I had to work for it. I had to earn it. He let his words hang in the air. The freshmen in the audience were hanging on to every syllable. And that's what I want to share with you today. Not some polished speech filled with business jargon or motivational cliches. I want to share something real. Your failures, whether in school, business, or life, are not roadblocks. They are blueprints. They show you where you need to grow, what you need to change, and most importantly, they remind you that success is never just given. It's built. The room was utterly still. No one was checking their phones. No one was whispering. Barron Trump had their full attention. Then, with a slight smile, he leaned forward and said, "And I can promise you this, if you take that lesson seriously, in 4 years, it won't matter what your last name is, where you came from, or how many times you fell down. What will matter is that you got back up." The room erupted into applause. But little did they know, this was just the beginning. As the applause swelled through the auditorium, Barron Trump stood quietly, allowing the moment to breathe. His expression remained composed, but there was a glimmer in his eye that hinted he was just getting started. When the room finally quieted, he leaned back toward the microphone. "I know what some of you are thinking," he said, a trace of humor softening his voice. "It's easy for you to say all of this. You're a Trump. What could you possibly know about struggle? And you know what? I get it. I used to think the same thing. A ripple of soft laughter broke the tension. Barron nodded as if acknowledging the elephant in the room. But let me tell you a story no headline ever captured, he said, his voice lowering slightly, a storyteller drawing his audience closer. It's the story of when I almost walked away from everything. Not just from NYU, but from the entire path my family had set before me. The room stilled again. No one had ever heard this part of his life. It was my sophomore year, he began. I had just come back from winter break. My father had announced his second run for the presidency, and overnight, the chaos returned. The media, the scrutiny, my inbox was flooded with hate mail from strangers who had never met me. Some people I thought were friends distanced themselves. Professors treated me differently, not all, but enough to notice. I couldn't walk through campus without feeling like I had a target on my back. His voice tightened ever so slightly, but his control was unshakable. I wanted out. I told myself that I didn't choose this life. I didn't ask to be born into a name that half the country seems to love and the other half seems to hate. And for a while, I believed that leaving would give me peace. A hush had settled over the audience. Barron Trump, this confident young man, was admitting to moments of doubt. Moments of vulnerability. I remember sitting alone in Washington Square Park late one night, right over there. He gestured toward the iconic spot visible through the windows. I was watching other students laugh and talk like the world wasn't sitting on their shoulders. And for a while, I envied them. I thought, why can't my life be that simple? He took a breath. The air seemed heavier, more intimate. But then something strange happened. An older man, a stranger, sat down next to me. And after a while, he said something I'll never forget. Barron's voice softened, but it seemed to carry even farther. He said, son, the world will always tell you who you're supposed to be. The question is, will you let them decide, or will you decide for yourself? A collective chill swept through the audience. It wasn't just a story, it was a challenge. I don't know who he was. I never saw him again. But those words haunted me in the best way. Because the truth is, I was so busy rejecting my name that I forgot something important. Your name isn't a prison, it's a foundation. And what you build on that foundation, that's up to you. He paused, letting the weight of those words settle. So, I made a decision that night. I wouldn't run. I wouldn't let the world's judgment define me. I would stay. I would work harder. And every time someone said I only got here because of my last name, I'd let my results speak for themselves. A low murmur swept through the crowd, admiration, disbelief, something stirring deep inside. And here's what I learned in the process: freedom doesn't come from walking away. It comes from owning who you are. Whether you come from privilege, poverty, or anywhere in between, your power lies in the choices you make every day. A thunderous applause erupted, this time louder, longer. Barron Trump wasn't just delivering a speech, he was breaking free from the world's perception of him. As the sound faded, Barron's tone grew more reflective. I know not all of you come from famous families, he said, scanning the room. Some of you are the first in your family to go to college. Some of you have parents who work 2-3 jobs just to get you here. I see you, I respect you. Because in the end, our circumstances might be different, but our responsibility is the same, to decide who we will become. The freshmen were on the edge of their seats. Whatever expectations they had when Barron Trump took the stage, he had shattered them. And that's my message to you tonight, he said, his voice rising with conviction. Do not let anyone else write your story. Not your family, not society, not even your past mistakes. That pen? It's in your hands. He stepped back from the podium for a moment, his silhouette framed by the lights. I stayed at Stern because I realized something. Success isn't about proving people wrong, it's about proving yourself right. And the only way you do that is by showing up again and again, no matter how hard it gets. The applause began again, this time it didn't stop. Barron Trump had come to the stage as a mystery. Now he stood as something else entirely, a voice people couldn't ignore. And as the night continued, no one could have predicted just how much further his message would go. As the applause surged and echoed through the auditorium, Barron Trump stood tall, his presence radiating a quiet confidence. He waited, not rushing to speak, allowing the weight of his last words to settle. When the room finally grew quiet, he stepped back to the podium, his voice softer but sharper. You know, he began, there's something else they don't tell you about walking your own path. It's lonely. The sudden honesty of his statement cut through the air like a blade. When you decide to stop living for other people's approval, when you stop chasing the version of yourself that fits their expectations, you lose things. Friends, comfort, certainty. And for a while, it's terrifying. His eyes scanned the room, landing on the wide-eyed freshmen in the front rows. Some of you will feel that this year. You'll sit in your dorms at night wondering if you belong here. wondering if you're enough. Let me tell you something, you are. The simplicity and force behind those words sent a shiver through the crowd. I know because I felt that too, Barron admitted. It didn't matter how many resources I had, there were nights when I felt completely alone. And every time I thought about quitting, that voice came back, will you let them decide, or will you decide for yourself? He paused for a moment, his hands resting on the sides of the podium. The world knew Barron Trump as the child of power, but tonight, he was speaking as something else, a young man who had fought for his identity. I learned that you don't find yourself in comfort zones, he said, his voice growing stronger. You find yourself in the moments when it would be easier to quit, but you don't. Every person you admire, every great entrepreneur, every leader, every innovator has had those nights when they questioned everything. The difference is they stayed in the fight when it got hard. The students in the crowd sat frozen, their attention locked on him. This wasn't the polished, detached speech they had expected, it was raw, personal, real. And if there's one thing I want you to take with you tonight, it's this: do not fear the struggle. His voice echoed through the hall, filling every corner. It's easy to look at people you admire and think they had it all figured out. They didn't. What separates those who succeed from those who don't is the willingness to endure, to stay when others walk away. A murmur of agreement swept through the audience. Barron Trump wasn't just offering advice, he was speaking to something deeper, something universal. He smiled faintly, a hint of warmth breaking through his serious expression. I know some of you are still skeptical, he said. You might think it's easy for him to talk about struggle. He doesn't know what it's like to worry about student loans or to wonder if you can afford next semester. And you're right, I won't insult you by pretending I know that firsthand. His honesty caught some off guard, but it only made the room respect him more. But here's what I do know, he continued, his tone unwavering. I know that the world doesn't care where you started. It only cares about what you build. And the truth is, no one's going to hand you anything. Not even your dreams. If you want to change your life, your family's future, or the world itself, you have to decide right now that you are willing to pay the price. The intensity in his voice sent a ripple of electricity through the audience. And that price, Barron leaned forward. It's not just hard work. It's resilience. It's showing up on the days when no one claps for you. It's pushing forward when no one's watching. The applause swelled again, louder, stronger. But he held up a hand, gently stopping them. He wasn't done. You're here because you already have what it takes, he said, his voice softening again. But the world is going to test you. It's going to tell you that you're too young, too inexperienced, too small to make a difference. His next words cut through the silence like a promise. Prove them wrong. The room trembled with energy. He had taken them on a journey, from his own doubts to a powerful challenge they couldn't ignore. But as impactful as his words already were, no one was prepared for what he would say next. The energy in the auditorium was palpable, a mix of awe, inspiration, and something else, possibility. Barron Trump stood at the podium, his shoulders squared as if he were carrying more than just his own story. He had the room in the palm of his hand, but instead of basking in their attention, he pressed on, deeper, more vulnerable. You know, he said quietly, when people hear my last name, they assume they already know my story. Some think it's a golden ticket, that my future is already written. Others think it's a weight I'll never escape. But here's the truth. Your name doesn't define you. What you do with it does. The crowd stirred. For some, his words felt deeply personal. Many freshmen in the room had grown up with their own inherited expectations, family legacies to uphold, or burdens they were desperate to escape. I used to think my last name was both my greatest blessing and my greatest curse, Barron continued. But then I realized it's neither. It's just a starting point. And your starting point, it doesn't get to decide how far you go. He paused, allowing the words to hang in the air. Some of you in this room carry names with weight, family businesses, cultural legacies, expectations that feel impossible to live up to. Others come from places where no one expects anything from you at all. He scanned the audience, his voice soft but urgent. Both are heavy in different ways, but neither one has the power to limit you unless you let it. Heads nodded across the room. His words didn't just apply to the children of famous families. They spoke to everyone who had ever felt trapped by the circumstances they were born into. I won't pretend it's easy, Barron said. There are days when you'll feel like the weight is too much. When you wonder if you're only here because of your name, or if you're being held back because of it. His expression shifted, something fierce rising beneath the surface. But those days, they're the test. They're asking you a question. Will you be the product of your past, or the architect of your future? A stillness settled over the room, as if every person present was grappling with that question in their own lives. My father once told me something when I was younger, Barron said, his voice softening with rare warmth. He said, "You don't inherit greatness, you earn it." At the time, I didn't understand what that meant. But I do now. He leaned slightly toward the microphone, his words carrying the weight of someone who had lived them. It means that no matter where you come from, whether your name opens doors or closes them, you are responsible for the life you build. And that's what I want you to remember as you start your journey here at Stern. The applause began again, steady and powerful. But Barron wasn't finished. He let the sound swell, then fade, before delivering his next words with quiet intensity. "I'm not standing here tonight because of my last name," he said. "I'm here because of the nights I didn't quit, the failures I didn't let define me. And every single one of you, you have that same power." The room was electric. What had begun as a speech by a president's son had become something else. A call to arms for anyone bold enough to take control of their destiny. "And if you take nothing else from tonight," Barron added, his voice low but charged, "take this, you are not your past. You are not your parents. You are not your mistakes. You are the decisions you make. Starting now." The applause returned louder this time. Students stood, one by one, until the entire auditorium was on its feet. But there was still one final lesson Barron Trump had to share, and it would be the one that would echo far beyond the walls of NYU Stern. The standing ovation surged through the room, a tidal wave of applause and energy. Yet, even as the audience clapped and cheered, Barron Trump remained still. He didn't bask in their approval or allow the moment to stretch too long. Instead, he lifted a hand, calm, composed, quieting the crowd once more. When the room fell silent, he stepped forward, and his voice dropped to a softer, more intimate tone. "Let me leave you with one final thought," he said. "Because the truth is, long after tonight, most of you won't remember every word I've said. That's okay. But if you remember this, it'll be enough." The crowd leaned in, breathless. "No one gets to decide your legacy but you." His words rang out with quiet force, striking something primal, the desire in every person to matter. "For years, I struggled with what it meant to carry a name everyone recognized," Barron admitted. "Was I supposed to follow the same path as those who came before me? Was I supposed to rebel against it? Or was there a third option? To build something entirely my own?" He let the question hang in the air for a beat before continuing. "I realized that legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what you create. And the world needs creators now more than ever." A ripple of murmurs spread across the room. This wasn't just another motivational speech. It was permission for every person listening to rewrite their story. "You might not have the resources I had," he acknowledged, his voice never losing its honesty. "You might face obstacles I'll never fully understand. But I promise you this, no one can take away your ability to decide who you become." He stepped back from the podium, his posture unwavering as he scanned the faces in the crowd, each one a blank page waiting to be written. "You came to NYU Stern because you believe you can build something bigger than yourself. But there will be days when you'll question that belief. Days when you'll wonder if you're smart enough, strong enough, or lucky enough to make it." His voice grew stronger, an edge of fire burning beneath the calm. "When that day comes, I want you to remember one thing: greatness is not a gift. It's a decision." A hush fell over the room. "You don't become great by waiting for the world to give you permission. You don't become great by playing it safe. You become great by showing up when it's hard, when it's uncomfortable, when no one is watching, and doing the work." The freshmen sat frozen, some with wide eyes, others scribbling furiously as if trying to capture every word before it slipped away. "I'm not here because I'm the son of a president," Barron said, his voice thick with conviction. I'm here because every day I made the decision to fight for the person I wanted to become. And you can too. The audience erupted into thunderous applause, but this time he didn't stop them. The sound rose and swelled, filling the grand auditorium with something more than noise, hope. For the first time since he began, a rare smile crossed Barron Trump's face. He let the moment breathe, then offered his final words. So, the question is, what legacy will you choose? And with that, he stepped back from the podium. The applause reached a fever pitch as the entire room, students, faculty, and guests rose to their feet. It wasn't just a standing ovation. It was an acknowledgement, a moment in history. Because in those few minutes, Barron Trump had done more than deliver a speech. He had changed how they saw themselves. And as he walked off the stage, one thing was clear: the world would never see him the same way again.